My name is Alexis Rogers, and I'm the Customer Relationship Lead here at Right Capital. And I want to welcome you to our webinar today on optimizing document management with the Vault. Now, today we are going to be walking through how we can first upload and obviously organize key documents to further enhance either client communications or just your own document storage within the client record. We're also going to be walking through how you can create Vault templates to just have a little bit of an easier process for both yourself and the client when onboarding them and probably looking for the same documents you're always looking for those initial kind of steps of creating the current plan. So we're going to walk through how you can create those and then streamline your process by establishing those as the defaults for new clients when you create them moving forward. Now, towards the end of the session, we're also going to be reviewing the different resources that you do have available to you when leveraging Right Capital. One of those resources being that during this webinar, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A section to type out your questions there. Now, switching gears into Right Capital, when we log into Right Capital, we're brought to what is referred to as our advisor dashboard. Now, we're going to be focusing on a couple of different pieces here when we're referring to the Vault. So we have our advisor management station for the Vault that we'll find in our advisor portal. But for those of you that are more familiar with it in the client plan, we're also going to walk through what that looks like as well and the different pieces of functionality that you can find throughout each. Now, one thing before we dive into the actual Vault management process as an advisor is that if you were looking to engage the client directly in the system, and especially if you're looking to have that extra step where maybe you're requesting documents from the client and you want them to be able to upload those and engage with Right Capital to do so, I want to just quickly walk through the process of how to invite the client into the system if you're wanting to engage them in that way. Now, this is something that you can do intentionally, of course, on a client-by-client basis. So maybe some clients would be more receptive to having that level of engagement, whereas maybe some clients, they're not ready to take that next step yet. Whatever the case may be, whichever client we're looking to invite, we would select them from our client list. And so let's say, for example, the Adams family, we want to take that next step. We want to make sure that they have access to the vaults. We want to engage them in the process of planning, but also just to give them that additional level of engagement. So to invite them to Right Capital, we would access this Client Access tab. So when we click into this tab, we'll see a space dedicated to us being able to enter the client and or the co-client's email address. We can invite both of them if we wanted to, or one or the other, or come back and add another one if we wanted to engage the co-client. Once we enter that email address, we can hit the invite button, and that would then invite the client to access their plan. Now, one thing that's very important to note when we are engaging a client in the system is that you have full flexibility and also control over what the client can access and how they can interact with the system. So down below is where you'll see a couple settings where you can specify whether or not you want your client to be able to update things. So we can indicate whether or not we want them to be able to update their profile items, for example. So if we don't want them to be able to update things like their salary, their contributions, their expenses, we can select the secondary option. And then we also have the option to indicate how we want our clients to interact with the action items being what we use to create our proposed strategies. So we can indicate whether or not we want them to be able to make adjustments to those action items. We also have the option to allow for them to try out different action items, but not save those changes. So just for example, the client can see, what does it look like if I retire early? How does that impact my probability of success? But once they logged out, it would be reverted back to whatever you have indicated as their proposed plan. Then we also have the option that they can try out and save those changes. So you do have that control over here in terms of how the client interacts with the system. Now, whatever you indicate from here, the client can still upload and make adjustments to their vaults as long as you have granted them access to view the vault. So to make sure that the client, if we are looking to engage them in this way, is going to be able to access the vault, we would make that selection under Planning Access. So under Planning Access, this is where we go to check off which of the tools that we want this client to have access to the next time they log in. So for example, especially for Vault, if we really want them to have access to the Vault, we just want to make sure that that is selected alongside any of the other planning tools you want them to have engagement in. And once we hit save, whether or not the client's already invited, let's say, this is a year into our relationship, we want to now give them access to the Vault or anything else, you can always come back in here and make adjustments. You also can deselect anything that's maybe no longer relevant. So this is always something that you can customize at any point in time in your relationship with the client and them being engaged in the system. Now, one thing that's important to note too, especially if you are inviting the client to access Right Capital and to access the vault in specific, the client also has the option to download our mobile application. So if they do have the mobile app and you grant them access to the vault, they can upload and download documents on the mobile app as well. So just want to note that this additional level of engagement, especially for a lot of the younger clients, really like that option because they typically might be storing documents on their phone anyways. It's just one thing to note, just making sure if we're trying to have the client upload or do anything, they would need to be invited to Right Capital to do so. But now we just walk through how to make sure that everything's in line as we look to engage the client directly in the system. We're going to be starting the conversation off in a specific client plan and accessing their vault. So we're going to search for the client that we're going to be looking at today, the Arya Stark-Baratheon family. When we click on the Open Client button, we can then access their client plan. But we're going to be starting the conversation off under the Vault folder in the upper right-hand corner. Under the Vault folder, this might be where you're most familiar with the vault. This is where we'll see this client-specific vault. Now we're going to be just starting off the conversation here to just walk through what we can do in this particular client plan. But I'm also in a couple minutes going to walk through how you have an advisor management level station that you can use to streamline your process and also just make uploads to individual client vaults in a little bit of an easier process and a little bit more of an efficient process. But if we needed to do so in a client record, we can also access their vault. So from here under the shared folder, this is where we can go to start to either create new folders, add files, and we can also open up existing items as well. So there's going to be a couple pieces here that we're going to be reviewing when we are accessing that advisor level management station. One of the things that's going to be unique to the client plan, though, that you're not going to see in the advisor management station is the private folder. So in a client plan, when you click on the folder icon, we have two options for the subtabs here. The first one is shared folder. This is where we exchange documents between ourselves and the client in that secure method. But we also will have a private folder. So the private folder is going to be a space that's unique to this client plan that allows for us to, of course, create folders, but also to upload files as well. So this is going to be something that only you as the advisor can view. The client would not have access to this private folder. So this might be where we're leaving, say, notes of the client plan, maybe notes of what we discussed with this client. And another thing too is that if we have engaged the client in Right Capital and they have access to their own vaults, they would also have their own private folder as well. So if they wanted a space to upload documents just to store maybe something that they're evaluating talking with you about, they can keep that set aside in their private folder. So that's going to be unique to them. So you both have your own individual private folders you're not going to have access to. The shared folder is going to be the space where we can start to collaborate with the client. Or if we don't have the client engaged, it's also just where we can store the documents and important things that we wanted to keep in the client vault. Now, for example, if we wanted to create a folder in this particular space, we can click on Create Folder. We can then title this folder. And so let's say we wanted to have another folder because we see the client uploaded a vesting schedule about vesting schedule. So we can enter that from here, title this by clicking into and adjusting the title, hitting the check mark to save the name change. And one thing that you'll see as a nice little differentiating factor here of who uploaded what, you will see an A here if the advisor yourself uploaded something or created a folder. If we do not see that A, we're going to see that the client uploaded this particular vesting schedule. And especially when we're in the client record, if we wanted to make any adjustments, like for example, uploading this nice little file that they uploaded to the vesting schedule section, we can drag and drop that one as needed. Now I can click into the vesting schedule folder and see the first vesting schedule. Now, another thing you'll be able to do from here is we can either retitle documents and also folders if needed by clicking on the three dots. We can download them. We can also delete them from here as well. If we click into it, we can see what that document is. And especially when we have multiple files, we can also click on this checkbox to download all the files from here by hitting the download button. We can also delete these if needed. That's not going to be the case for today. So this is what it looks like in the individual client plan. So this is especially if we're just in the client plan already. Maybe we're walking through a couple documents from here for the client. We can do so in the client record. but we're going to be pivoting over to the advisor management station. That's really going to be a host for your processes in general, especially when you're trying to upload a document to multiple clients at once. We're going to be looking at a little bit of a case study from there as well. So going back into our advisor portal, when we click on the Vault icon in the upper right-hand corner, that's going to bring us to our advisor management station for the vault. So the first thing we're going to see here is all of the vaults and all of our clients are going to be listed from here. And we're going to see per client how many files are in that client's vault. We're going to see when was the last time that the client uploaded a file, and when was the last time that the client downloaded a file as well. So you can see Aria, for example, we saw that vesting schedule. She just uploaded that this morning, which hasn't downloaded anything in a while. And that might be where we're trying to engage them further. So we are going to be looking at kind of mass distributing a nice little file for our clients. So we're going to walk through what that looks like in a couple minutes. But another kind of piece that you'll see here when we are accessing this vault and we're seeing our clients list is if we click on the client name, that will actually open up here the client's vault. So this will be familiar to what we were just seeing when we had the actual client plan open. This is a way we can just quickly peek into what's happening with the vaults. And you can also add files directly from here as well. So for example, if we know, hey, we're going to be meeting with Aria later, we wanted to talk about that vesting schedule, we can just open up that nice little vault for Aria, click on the item from here for the folder, and then access that particular file. We can always click back into her main vault by clicking on the name. And the same thing, if we needed to rearrange anything, we can also do that from here. We can also do the same exact things that we might have been able to do in the actual client vaults. So this is essentially a space that we can go to easily navigate all of our clients' vaults directly from this space. So if we needed to adjust anything, we want to make sure that everything's all good before we have a client meeting, seeing what they uploaded from the last time we spoke. Maybe we got the notification that they uploaded something. We can click into each of these as needed. So this is how we can view all of the different folders and files. We can also create new ones from here. But when we're ready to take it to the next step and we want to start to mass upload either a file or folders to existing clients, we can establish that with the shared documents section. So with the shared documents tab, this allows for us to either add a file or create a folder that we can then choose to share to multiple clients at once. So for example, for today, we're going to be kind of sending to our clients that really need that additional boost of just, hey, keep up the great work. It's a nice little one-page flyer that we're going to be sharing with them. So we're going to click on the add file button from here. And this is going to be the exact kind of similar process we'll see if we're actually uploading a file to the individual client vault. So when we click on that button, it's going to open up this drawer that allows for us to either drop a file into the space. We can select a file from our computer, or we can upload from one of these various sources. So for example, we're going to drop a file from here. We can have multiple at once, but we're just looking at the one. And then we're going to click on the add to vault option right here. Now, if we see this and we're like, hey, this is not what I meant to select, we can select discard all or hit the trash button here to delete an individual file. In this case, we're going to click on add to vault. And then we will see that now populate here under shared documents. And once again, especially before we share this with anyone, if we need to rename this, we can click on the three dots from here and hit rename. We can also download this if we want to just double check. Maybe it's been a while since we uploaded this. We want to make sure this is still the right document, the right file. We can hit download. We can also delete it from here as well. Now, when we are ready to share this across multiple clients, we can do so by clicking on the Select Client Group dropdown. Now from here, we can choose to share this with either all of our clients at once. I would share it with everyone in my client list, or we can break it up by group. So I can share it with individual client groups from here, or I can select the individuals from my client list by selecting their name from here. Now, let's say, for example, we're trying to focus on our current clients and also our retiree group. We can select those two from here. Once we click out of there, that's then going to share this document with those clients. Now, if we wanted to revoke access to this document, we can click on this X button from here, and that would remove their access to this document. And we also could, if we needed to, delete this document and revoke the access as well. Now, one of the other things that we can do, especially when we're in something like the main vault, is we can download multiple files at once. So if I click into the vault section under the specific client plan, this is where we can go to upload and also customize these kind of client specific pieces. If we are wanting to just take a step back and open up a client plan, let's go to one of my current clients groups. We can click on this arrow icon, and I just want to show what it looks like when we do share a kind of folder or file from that shared document space. We go to the vault icon here for Nick Cage. This is where we can go to start to see this kind of locked icon here that'll say documents. So when we click on that, this is going to be where we'd see all of those documents that are essentially they're going to be considered locked to the client. So this means that they're not going to be customizable by the client, anything like that. They still can access them if needed in download. And so this is going to be that locked folder. So you'll see that locked icon. That's because that's indicating you uploaded this from the shared document space back in the advisor management station. We'll see that nice little flyer here and anything else I've uploaded on the mass client level from that shared document space. So this is how we can see what it looks like. You can also see that in the vault section as well, but it's going to be similar experience for the client. When they have access to this, they'll see that locked document section and they can click into it to see those kinds of files and folders. If you go back into the advisor portal and back into the vault in the upper right-hand corner and back under shared documents, we can also start to create folders and share them with clients as well. So we can see here I have a couple that I've already chosen to share with some clients, like tax documents. We were talking about tax planning, obviously before the end of tax season this year, estate beneficiary, a couple other pieces as well. So we can create folders and share that with all clients just to mass upload that kind of folder to clients that are already existing. One thing that is important to kind of walk through, especially as you're looking to streamline your practice in general with Right Capital, is the templates. So if we are looking to make sure that we have a nice little setup, especially as we're looking to onboard clients in Right Capital, or maybe for your own ease, we can leverage templates to do so. So if we click into three dots and under templates, so as long as we click on the templates button, that's going to bring us to where we can go to start to create and customize existing templates. In this case, we're going to be focusing on the vault templates. So when you click on three dots, templates, vault, from here, we can add a new template by clicking on new template. When we add that new template, we can then click into the header here and then title it as needed. Same thing for this existing template. Maybe this is my beginning documents version 1. I can title this 1.0. Hit the check mark to save that. And this is also a very popular use case, especially as we're looking to onboard clients of these are the beginning documents that we are always finding ourselves asking the client for. Things like net worth items, tax statements, if we do focus on that, insurance plans, contribution statements, if maybe we start to focus on vesting schedules and having a lot of stock plan conversations with clients, we can also add that from here. So in that case, this is something we find ourselves more often asking the client for. So we're going to click on add folder. We're going to ask for that vesting schedule. Hit the check mark. And then we can choose to apply this template to existing clients. So if I click on apply templates, because I see a couple of you are asking, if we are realizing that we want to start to leverage folders for the client to just easily upload or organize documents into, or maybe for yourself, we can apply the vault template for the folders to existing clients as well. So this is a great way to have multiple folders created at once and apply them to multiple clients at once as well, either applying this to all clients, those individual client groups, or I can select just the different clients that I'm wanting to access this particular vault template. So I can hit save, and that would then apply these beginning documents to those clients. Now, another very popular use case for this is maybe the next steps of our kind of process with the client. So maybe it's going to be us taking that in a kind of additional level of engagement with the client. Maybe we're trying to ask them to fill out some sort of data collection template about something specific we're working on. Maybe it is the vesting schedule conversation. Maybe we want to have a delineated out template for that particular instance where we know we need a lot of documents from the client. We want to just help organize it for them. We can also create multiple templates from here and apply those templates to existing clients from here as well. Now, a good kind of use case for the Vault, where you can mass upload either folders or files at once, is probably for those more one-off situations where you don't need to all at once have multiple folders assigned to a client, but you can certainly leverage both simultaneously. Now, one thing that is going to be a kind of benefit, especially if you do create an onboarding template for the Vault folders or maybe the beginning documents template, and you want to have this be leveraged as the kind of setup for clients' vaults moving forward. If that's the case, we can set this as the default for new clients by going into the 3 dots, client settings. Under client groups, this is where we can go to create additional client groups. So if we click on add group, we can add a new client group, of course. But what's going to be important here for when we create new clients is us selecting those templates. So we can click on this edit button here under the default templates column. It's going to open up a drawer that allows for us to define what templates we want to use for when we create new clients going forward. So that includes the planning access selections. So if we did create a template for planning access, or when we invite a client, we can have a default thing set up here. Same thing for onboarding flow. So especially if you did create a custom onboarding flow and you opted to maybe include the Vault in those initial steps of data entry, probably want to make sure you're selecting that from here so you don't have to manually assign it. Snapshot, and also Vault as well. So for example, I already have the onboarding template set up from here, but maybe we want to switch over to our beginning documents 1.0. That's the one that I use for maybe the most for clients. We can select that option and hit save. And every client that I create, that's a new current client, they will then be having that exact folder set up going forward. Now, if you are using the leads program in RightCapital, you can do the same for leads as well. So you'll see a different option here to edit what the default template is for new leads. So it's going to be anyone using that leads URL to sign up. They would then have access to, whatever you have indicated as part of your default planning access template from this dropdown, onboarding template, snapshot, and Vault as well. So if you have a different workflow for leads, which you probably would, you can select what that Vault template would be. Maybe this is onboarding template for them. We can select that option and hit save. So you do also have that option for how you engage clients from the get-go and also streamline your practice when it comes to either onboarding new clients or engaging prospects in the process. Now, one of the other things that is going to be beneficial that you can also set up, especially before you start to maybe engage clients in the Vault or just in general, is number one, the client notifications. And I will show in a couple minutes how you can customize your own. But under the 3 dots, client settings section, under notifications, this is where you can go to set up how you want the default to be for new clients created going forward for their notifications. And that includes engagement in the Vault. So under notifications for the client notification piece, we can indicate how often we want the clients to see tasks and when we want them to see kind of those reminders as well. So you can see here whether or not we want the client to have a notification when a new task is assigned to them. How often do we want that to be sent out to them, when it's going to be due, when it's upcoming today, in a week, in 2 weeks, and when tasks are overdue, do we want that to be a weekly reminder, monthly reminder, no reminder at all? And then we also have the option to indicate, do we want the client to be notified when we upload a document to the shared folder? So if that's the case, we can select yes. And then we also have the same thing for risk assessments when a new assessment is assigned to them. So you can make any sort of selections here and hit save. Now this is only going to impact the default for new clients created going forward, especially for clients that already have access to the system. They have full control over their notifications, so they can customize the frequency of their notifications and adjust them if needed as well. Now for your own notifications, especially if you do have the client engaged in the system and you want to make sure that your notifications are set up to make sure you're reminded if a client is actually doing anything in Vault, you can do that as well. So for your own notifications, you would be going into the notification center. So clicking on this bell icon, this is where you access your notification center. So this is where you'll see all notifications that we have for my client list. But the notification settings section is going to be where we go to establish the frequency of our notifications and also what we want to see a notification for. So within this section, we'll see 3 different options for the frequency and how we want to see these notifications delivered as well. So we have the first option here, which is to send an immediate notification email if any of these activities happen. That's going to include onboarding for a client. That's going to kind of include if a client signs up using that leads process that I referred to earlier, if they accept our invitation to access the system, if they complete the data entry process for their current plan, and then also for vault activities. So we can choose to get an immediate notification when a client uploads a file to the vault or downloads a file from the vault as well. And then the same thing for risk assessments. If they complete one, we can get an immediate notification for additional reference. Now, this one would be happening every time one of these activities occur for any clients across our book of business that we have engaged into the system. If we do not want it to be as frequent as an email, if we do have a lot of clients engaged in the system, maybe it becomes too much, there's also the option for a daily report email. Now, the daily report email will be a once-a-day summary of all of those same activities, plus additional client activities. So that can include if a client completes a task, updates any of their information in the system. This is going to be dependent upon whether or not we've allowed them to make updates, of course, and also for your own tasks, reminders, and also write and tell key events. And if we do not want any emails to be generated or have those reminders, you do also have the option to indicate if you want any of these items to be included in just the notification center. Now, the notification center was that space we first launched into when we accessed the bell icon onto the notifications tab. So you have 3 different options here of how frequent you want some of those notifications, and also whether or not you want it to be in an email or just in the notification center in RightCapital. So this is how you can ensure that your notifications are kind of just set up for your success and just seeing the level of engagement. And also, especially if maybe you were waiting for a client to upload a document before you have an additional conversation, maybe it is about the stock plan and the vesting schedule, you can get that immediate notification email, and then maybe that's when we're going to email them or assign them a task to book a call with us. Now, another thing that I want to note before we dive into questions, because I see we have quite a few and a couple use cases that people want to model, so I can definitely have some time for that. I also want to just briefly cover how we can see additional insights into client activities as well. So under the RightIntel dashboard, under Client Overview, and under Activities, this is where we can go to see exactly what clients are doing when they're in the system. If we've granted them permission to access or customize things as well, we can really see a lot of insights from here. So under Activities, we can see all the clients that are engaged in the system. We can see when they last logged in, when they originally accepted our invitation, how many times have they logged in, and any activities in the last 4 weeks. So if we click on this drop down, we can see what a client has modified. So in this case, they renamed a document to vesting schedule. That was the one that we just saw earlier. And so we can see a lot of insights from here. So that's going to be really relevant for when we do have the ability for clients to be able to make adjustments to things. But especially for vaults, they can see, and we can see here, kind of what is happening in terms of client engagement. So you can see they rename something. We could also see that at the high level in the kind of notification email. But if you're looking for additional insights, you'll see a full breakdown from here.